And greetings YouTube gamers, welcome to another episode of Retro Raider. My name is Johnny Retro and welcome to the channel. So guys, today I'm going to bring you a list of 5 games, 5 video games, but these are not, top 5s or anything like that. If you're a retro gaming collector, if you like to preserve the physical aspect of our beautiful hobby, you know that this can be an expensive thing to accomplish. Now, I'm not saying that the whole retro collecting scene is expensive. You can still find good deals. I would say that most of the games that you want to play on a system are, very inexpensive or accessible. Let's say, for example, that you want to collect for the Mega Drive or the NES. With the money that you will expend, let's say, on a modern game for a modern platform, you can easily get 4, 5, 6 games for an older console. But if you're a collector, you know that there are a couple of games that you want to have in your collections that, they're just way out of your pocket. That's what I'm going to bring you guys today. I'm going to bring you guys 5 games that I would love to have on my collection, but unfortunately, I don't have the money for them. But before that, guys, if you're new on the channel, don't forget to subscribe and watch a couple of my older videos. So without further ado, guys, let's jump into the video right after this. Okay, number one, it is actually a game that it is a sequel to one of my favorite video games on the PS1. It is a game that I totally skipped back in the day, and nowadays it's just very hard and expensive to get. I'm talking about Tombi 2 on the PS1, or Tombi 2 if you live outside of Europe. Now, the funny thing about this game is that I actually have the first one, of course, and this one I think that it is a little bit more expensive, but I think that Tombi 2 is actually a little bit hard to find. I think that it is a little bit rarer. This is a great game, definitely one of my favorites on the PS1. I actually did a review of this game. It was actually my very first YouTube video. I can leave the link of that video in the description box below if you guys want to check it out. So yeah, I played a lot of this game back in the day when I was a kid, but I totally skipped the sequel. I've heard that the second one, it is not as good as the first one, but it is just one of those games that I totally regret for not getting back in the day. So Tombi 2, the first one on this list. Now number 2, guys, and this is a game that, well, it is part of a franchise that, everybody has heard about it before, and I'm talking about Donkey Kong. I'm talking about the classic Donkey Kong, but this is a port that, not a lot of people talk about. It is a very obscure port, and it is also for a very obscure system. Talking about this baby right here, the Atari XEGS, and the cool thing about this system is that, although not a lot of people collect for it, now for me the beauty of this system is that, it combines the best of both worlds, because it is an Atari 8-bit computer, and it also functions as a console. It is a powerhouse when it comes to Atari 8-bit games, and this right here is how the cartridge looked like. Now, these are not terribly expensive to get, but the thing is that the classic Donkey Kong game, the port that was made specifically for the XEGS, it is truly arcade perfect. You have all of the levels, all of the original sounds. It is really the way to go, in my opinion, if you want to play the classic Donkey Kong game. But unfortunately, it is very, very expensive to get. It is a rare game, you don't find it very often. As a matter of fact, I never saw one of those games in the wild. And when they do pop out on eBay, it is just crazy. Maybe it is not the same reality on the US, but if any of you want to get me a copy of this game, talk to me. Just give me a call. So yeah, number 2 on my list, Donkey Kong on the Atari XEGS. Now, number 3. Everybody within the retro gaming collecting scene just loves to collect for the NES. Now, here is the fun fact on collecting for the NES. The fun fact is that the most valuable games, the rarest games and most expensive ones on the system, are not very good games. It is true. You can have a very solid NES collection, with classic titles that are fun to play for just a couple of bucks. But of course, there are exceptions. And this game is one of those exceptions. I'm talking about, of course, Little Samson, a game that is under the radar of pretty much every NES collector, and with a good reason, because although it is an expensive game, it is actually worth to play. Played it on emulation, I never saw a physical copy of it, and as you guys know, it is expensive to get. It truly is a rare game. It was a late release on the NES, which is probably the reason why it is a rare game. And again, the European version is even harder to get. This game was released in Europe in '93 if I'm not mistaken. Not a lot of copies of this game. Good luck trying to find one, especially completed in box, but the hunt is still on, so Little Samson, my number 3. Number 4, speaking about Nintendo, let's talk about Super Nintendo. Didn't grow up with Super Nintendo, as you guys know, I was a Sega kid, but looking back, the Super Nintendo is of course a wonderful system to collect for, especially if you guys like RPGs, which I'm a big fan of. As a matter of fact, 16-bit RPGs is my sweet spot when it comes to retro gaming. Unfortunately, on the Super Nintendo, RPGs means expensive. Not rare, expensive, two different things. I could talk a little bit about that, but I think that I will leave that topic for a future video. Now, there's one RPG on the Super Nintendo that I would love to get my hands on. And pretty much like Little Samson on the NES, every Super Nintendo collector is after this game. And I'm talking about EarthBound, of course. Here's the thing about EarthBound. This is a game that I played very recently for the very first time. I have a video about that, link of the video in the description box below. And I really fell in love with the game. I played the game on the Super Nintendo Mini, of course. And here's the thing, I know that I could get the Japanese version, Mother 2, for very cheap. Played it on the Retron 5 with the original controller, but it is not the same thing. And I do have Super Famicom games, games like Chrono Trigger, Second and Sensu 3, and I really don't mind these games, I really don't. I mean, I can play them. It is not the same thing as play them on the original hardware, but I'm just not willing to pay the extra buck for a PAL version or an American version. But when it comes to EarthBound, this is where the collector side of me really pops out. That big box with the thick guide, I think that it truly is a collector's piece when it comes to retro gaming, and it is by far one of the best RPGs that I've ever played. Not just on the Super Nintendo, but literally one of the best RPGs of all time. Another very good example of a very expensive game that, in my opinion, it is worth to have it on a collection. And if you guys watch my video on EarthBound, I talk a little bit about that because I could actually get the game a couple of years ago for a cheap price. Cheap for now, but definitely not cheap back in the day. I feel so stupid for not getting that NTSC version, but it is what it is. The hunt is still on, so yeah, EarthBound, number 4. Now the last one, number 5. Now this next one, it is a Neo Geo game. Everybody knows that collecting for the Neo Geo is expensive as a whole. Probably one of the most common games on the AES library is Magician Lord. Very common game, it was a launch title. I would say that you can easily find a copy of Magician Lord on the NES for about 50 to 80 euros more or less. That is a cheap game for Neo Geo. But I don't own an AES. I have a CMVS. This is a consolized MVS, so what this is pretty much, it is a console version of the arcade unit. I have a video on it, link in the description. Now, collecting for the MVS, it is not as expensive as it is to the home version AES. But here is the thing, Magician Lord, it is cheap to get on the AES, expensive to get on the MVS. So, I'm This is what I use to play MVS games. I have this multi-card right here, which is the multi-game 161 in 1. This is a cheap bootleg multi-card, but here's the thing. It is how I can experience MVS games on the original hardware for a cheap price. So I'm fine with this. It has a lot of classics, Samurai Showdown, Metal Slug, King of Fighters, etc. But no Magician Lord. No Magician Lord on this thing. I've looked online and you do have other multi-cards with different games from this one, but again, no Magician Lord. So I need to have the MVS version, which unfortunately it is 4 or 5 times more expensive than the AES one. If you never played Magician Lord, guys, I think that it truly is one of the best Neo Geo games of all time. It is a game that it definitely delivers a different taste, a different flavor to the SNK library. Another one that I played on emulation only, and I would love to get an original copy of it. Guys, if you never played it, definitely check out Magician Lord. And there you go, guys, these were my 5 rare, expensive games that I would like to have on my collection, but unfortunately, I can't afford them. And please let me know, guys, let me know down below what games are you guys hunting for your collections, but unfortunately, they're just too rare or too expensive for you. Let me know on the comment section below. And there you go, guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to put a like on this video, please subscribe to the channel, and take care of yourselves, take care of the gaming community, and game a lot.